Morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm feeling pretty content. I'm gonna go see Gil Headley talk about the Nerve Tour today. So I am excited to spend 5 hours in body nerdy land.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds good.
yeah.
I'm actually gonna go visit a retreat center a little bit later after this call to see what their facilities are like and see if I want to host a retreat there, possibly this winter. So I'm trying
Lovely.
to talk to the director and stuff like that. So yeah,
Awesome. It's good. It's gonna be a good day.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And the weather is really beautiful right now too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yes to fall. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. I just wrapped up teaching, not only teaching, but teaching a teacher how to teach. And so I just dropped her off at the airport this morning, and I've spent like the last 3 or 4 days with her, and I've been consumed with just that.
Yeah.
So kind of coming off of that and then moving into another class starting tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
a lot.
it
Like
is.
feeling like the need to decompress after that.
Yes, there's been a lot of doing nothing in between times.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Good.
All right, well, let's get into it today. What's on your mind? And
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about spiritual materialism. Maybe some of our listeners have heard that term before. Yeah.
I've actually never heard the term until we started talking about it, but as soon as you said those words, I knew exactly what you were referring to.
Yeah. It's pretty prevalent today. And I first came across that term probably like 10 years ago, living in Hawaii. A friend was reading a book. That was the title. And I don't remember the author, and there's probably several books on it. And same thing happened with me. I saw the cover of the book. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that is. You
Yeah,
know, not
yeah.
something that's like floating around on a daily basis, but like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
Hmm.
So I was we're gonna jump into this, and I also want to just put a disclaimer out there right now. If you're listening, you might get triggered by this episode. Your ego might have a reaction or a response to what we have to say. And what I want to say to you is notice that, take note of it, and just keep listening. And it's okay for that response to exist. And it's okay if you identify with anything that we're talking about here today on the show. It really is okay. But we're gonna dive into what it is, what it's about, what's happening, and um, what you might want to do otherwise, or what you might want to do in addition to what you're doing now. So
That
yeah,
makes that makes me think we should probably create an episode around noticing the sensations of edges, the
yeah.
gross edges, and what that actually can feel like and how to be with the discomfort that often
Yes, we
brings.
should definitely do an episode on that. That's a great idea. Let's write that down.
Yeah.
So, here we are, spiritual materialism. So, Sarah, how would you define it?
Well, when you first said it, it made me think of the accoutrement or the paraphernalia that spiritual folks sort of jangle around with them, whether it's a rock in your pocket or a display of cards of like what are you wearing, that sort of signals to another person that you may or may not be into a certain thing. Um, so I mean, even that could like, I feel like we're kind of talking about like when you walk down the street and you maybe see someone wearing a certain basketball jersey of like the team they're into, it's like a signal to another person like, hey, I'm a this person fan or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think there's a big difference between like wearing something to get yourself into the space of something, right? Like during the pandemic, I started growing my hair out because I just wanted to kind of mark a new era of life. Um, and so it was kind of like I knew a new shift was coming. I wanted to mark that with a physical expression, but then I was like growing into that person. So I think there is some value, I suppose, in like, okay, I want to be this person, so I like step into the role of that person. But then there becomes like a line, and I don't always know where the line is, right, of when something becomes not real or fake or like disingenuous.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. I think we should explore that more. So, what I heard you say was that it's like things that people adorn themselves with to let other people know about their beliefs or something about how they identify or what their values are, right? And we're talking about spirituality, and that's a broad term, but I think everybody listening to this would be able to identify what we're talking about when we say spirituality. That can include energy, chakras, Eastern philosophy, colors, like all the colors of the rainbow, reincarnation, right? Spirit guides, um, astral projection, channeling, right? Higher self, souls, soulmates, like all that kind of stuff, right? So, um, if I'm what I'm hearing you say is like people who believe in those things and identify with those things, wearing stuff, having crystals that basically sh they're showing themselves like are they identify with those because those are spiritual objects, right? And they're also trying to show other people. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
pretty good definition.
Yeah. And this making me think about whenever I was first kind of introduced to spirituality, as a very young person, I was
Yeah.
navigating yoga and the internet and like
Yeah.
Ayurvedic principles and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
there was and like going to massage school, okay. Um
Yeah.
I
Very
have some
spiritual trade.
I have some thoughts about what happens in those places, but I remember feeling like at certain points there was like toxic moments, right? Where like if I don't have this rock, I'm not ascending enough or something crazy like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if I don't do this in a certain way, there's that sort of rigidity along with it that seems
Yeah.
to get into that toxic vibe.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Yeah, like a too much belief in that stuff, certainly. Um yeah. Um I think there's nothing inherently wrong with wearing whatever the hell you want to wear and
Absolutely.
doing whatever you want to do. But I think there is something not wrong, that's not the right word. There's a difference between displaying yourself as a spiritual person and wanting to identify as a spiritual person and actually living spiritual values. That's for me, that's kind of where the toxicity exists. Um, it's maybe you have all of the stuff. You've got tapestries, you wear the clothes, you've got the crystals, you have the altar complete with Shiva and Ganesh and like maybe a guru, and maybe even Christ, Christ is really groovy in that space too for a lot of people. And like you've got your altar and all those candles, blah blah blah. But if you're having all of that but you're not actually practicing the things that it's talking about. Um, and we can delve into that. I really want to delve into that more. Then it's toxic, and it's not. I would say toxic. It's a perversion. It's like a perversion of the intent, right?
Mhm.
So in that way, it's not not valuable in the way in the most powerful way, I should say.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and the word materialism really connects it all back to our Western society today and capitalism, right? Like you were talking about like, yeah, when you were early 20s or whatever, young teen and the internet and like um, you know, head shops and places like that and massage school, right? It's like, and with the culture that we've grown up in, what we subconsciously do is buy stuff, right? You want to get into something, you buy the stuff, right? You have to have the stuff. That is like the number one thing, right? Is making sure you have the stuff. As we've been trained that that's good, that's right, that makes us feel good, we get that dopamine hit, and then we
Hmm.
get this new identity where the rest of the world gets to see us with our basketball jersey on walking down the street, right? But it's like there's people who are bigger fans of that team that maybe don't have any basketball shit. Or maybe there's people that play basketball and are more talented and don't own any garb at all. They have shoes for playing basketball, right? They have the practical things, but they don't have all of the posters and the signed balls and this and that, right? So there's I feel like there's this element of capitalism that is that's really what's going on is a capitalistic model
Hmm.
of engagement with the subject.
I
Um,
mean, the
yeah.
truth is to live a spiritual life truly is a lot of underworld journeys, is a lot of like trudging around in the moist, dark spaces of your heart
Yeah.
and the universe and the psyche of yourself and each other and collectively. And it is not all love and light. That is for damn
Oh,
sure.
yeah, that's true. That's another that's a whole nother that's a topic we should delve into. Yeah. It's the real stuff is doing your work and diving into your beliefs that you picked up from birth and from your family of origin, right? And from our society, right? It's like going into that, understanding it, and understanding how it's driving your behavior and your attitudes and how you view the world and working to change it. Like, that's the real stuff. Like, how do I become a more loving person? How do I love myself more, love my life, love the world, love my partner, how do I love and accept and understand and have compassion more? That's the real stuff, right?
Hmm.
Because and then let me say this too, for those of you who are listening that might, fall under this category. Like it's okay. It really is okay. Do whatever you want to do, wear whatever you want to wear. But like if here's the question. If we took away all of those things, could you still call yourself a spiritual person? Like if we took away all that and you stop all those things, could you still really identify or would people still call you a spiritual person? Is it's about the quality of your character and what you're doing, right? Are you
Hmm.
praying? Are you meditating? Are you serving the poor and the sick? Are you, doing acts of service and charity? Are you working on being a more loving person? Are you trying to improve the world? Right? Like those are like how well are you able to work with your nervous system and remain calm, right? Like all that stuff. Because if we took all of the garb away and all the trinkets away, and you're not able and you're not doing those things, then you're just wearing clothes. You're just wearing clothes. But if you are doing those things and you're not wearing any of those clothes, you're still a spiritual person, right? Like, so that's the reality. And it's okay if you want to wear those things and appear that way. It's all right. But um God, I just have so much to say about this. It, I feel like it's just a big trend. It's a big trend and it might last for a while, but I think we're gonna look back in like 20 years and see this trend. But I do believe there are going to be things that last, you know, things that last are the real spirituality. Like there. all of this exists because there's a genuine hunger for it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like people are disillusioned with Christianity and Catholicism, right? There is every year church attendance declines,
Mhm.
right? Spirituality, New Age spirituality, New Age beliefs, and all those kinds of things, I feel like are really starting to take the place of formal old world tradition religions, right?
Yeah, it does seem like that's more of a in the mass like culture, I suppose. It's much more acceptable. You know, I grew up in a really small town, and we're kind of the first generation with the internet. So I remember really young, like fifth, sixth grade, I was probably 10 or 11, being introduced to the internet. And that truly was, I would spend hours reading about things that I didn't know any ever existed. And I mean, that's really where I found the first information about chakras and like what is
Yeah,
it and like and things like that. And it's wild to me still that it is like all of the spiritual garb is as accessible today, because growing up in that small town, like I mean, I had to drive a long way to get to a head shop, to
yeah,
get to any of those things. And even that was like really cultural even in like the
yeah,
early 2000s. And
yeah,
so it's wild to think that my like I'm still friends with some people from high school who are, still very Catholic. I grew up Catholic too. And it's like, and they're like playing with crystals because there's a crystal shop now in the town I grew up in, which is like so wild to me, and it's kind of like I know because I've done the work, I've been in the trenches with all of this, that this is here to stay for me. But
yeah,
I do wonder, come 5, 10, 15 years, as this trend sort of like carries as trends do,
yeah.
what will be here instead? I don't know, maybe that's me sounding like a really old lady, but that's what
Yeah.
I think about.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a really good question. I think we will see like a disillusionment or a decrease in that kind of stuff. But there will be things that stay, absolutely. Like that's just how
Mhm.
it goes. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
You know? So I kind of want to talk about the dangers of spiritual materialism.
Hmm.
What do you think? Do you think it's dangerous? And if so, what are those dangers?
I mean, I think anytime you're doing something for like the purpose of showing or flexing or whatever, there's going to be danger, right? Like you're going to get yourself in a situation that um, is precarious. I also think that, deep spiritual work is not for the lighthearted. I mean, yes, you emerge from a dark place feeling like easier to love, possibly, maybe not always, but possibly. And I just, if you're not really ready for that kind of trip down into the underworld,
Yeah.
can be really disorienting, and it can be really I don't know, I think it's really important to be prepared for what you're into. It's not all love and light all the time, there's Kali is there, and like many other shadow aspects of every concept, and do you have like the inner safety? Do you have people in your life to orient yourself to remain safe as you navigate like spiritual spaces? And not to mention when we're really consumed with the stuff about it, I don't know how safe that container can actually be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I think that the truth of the spiritual work is can be heavy and can be dark, and you can't get around that. Um, and that's called spiritual bypassing, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
When it's just we're all one, and I am a child of God and a soul of light and a reincarnated blah 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 blah, right? And if you just continue to latch onto that, and never confront the fact that you do have an ego, that you have harmed people, that you've been harmed, that maybe you are doing harm right now. If you don't confront those things and those aspects of yourself, all those different parts of your personality, and actually look at your pain, you're gonna stay within a certain region, right? If you don't go down deeper, your personal growth as a human being and what is possible for your life is gonna be limited.
Hmm.
That's the danger, just staying up here, at the surface of the water in the first 10 feet, and just having fun, right? You are limiting yourself, and you are limiting it's fear-based. It's you're living in fear of yourself and the things that have happened to you and the things that you've done.
Right.
And living in that way, you will remain disempowered. Uh,
Hmm.
you will not be able to access your full power and your full self, which I think is required for the most fulfilling, most full experience of life that we can have.
Hmm.
And it is also required for you to become who you're supposed to become or who you can become, and to have the greatest effect on the world in a positive manner. You have to dive into everything that is yourself.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the kind of person who doesn't have an interest in the deep dive, you know? Like
Yeah,
I do think I have seen people trip and fall sort of into spirituality via the garb and the material stuff.
yeah,
Um,
yes,
right? You know, it's like, oh yeah, this is all so pretty and shiny, and then like, oops, I just became enlightened.
yeah,
I mean, I've definitely seen that happen. I also think that, it's like I just don't know if everyone's ready for what it takes, you
yeah,
know. But then I also think like, the person who's not necessarily seeking the spiritual enlightenment, like it's okay. It's okay for you not to live in your full
yeah,
um I don't even want to say potential because that makes there be this quality to it, but it's like it's okay for you to live however you are living, like right now.
yeah. And like everybody's path is different, and I'm not here to judge anyone's path or to
Yeah.
say you're doing it wrong. I'm just saying that there is more depth to it, and that um it's almost a oh, that's a loaded word, but it is kind of a bastardization of a lot of things, and it's okay to want to live in this kind of spiritual materialistic identity, but there's a lot more to all those things that you are looking at, and it requires dedication, and it requires the ability to be uncomfortable, and
Hmm.
I think the delving into and all that stuff is really comes about through a serious intention, and it can happen accidentally for sure.
Hmm.
I think the prevalence of this is a good thing, because as much as it's misused or whatever, it is a doorway, all of the imagery, all of the clothes, all of the practices, that is absolutely it, right? But it's being misinterpreted. But you can get to the real stuff, and you can actually, so it's just because it's so popular, it's just opening more opportunity for people to dive into themselves and look at themselves, right?
Hmm.
The more that there's chakra posters and affirmation videos and influencers talking about tapping into your intuition or guide, whatever, like that is legitimately going to help people get to a place of profound healing, you know? So ultimately,
Even if it just asks people to get curious about their life, get curious about what's working and what's not working, I feel like it's a good thing.
yeah, yeah,
I can already see, because I've been in this world for quite some time now. I can already see where the next like stage is coming with this, right? Like not necessarily the next trend, the trend's leaving or whatever, but I'm starting to see some people ask some questions that are more holistic, if you will, like a more whole picture. And I think that's really great. But
yeah,
I have some concerns about it too, I can kind of go into that if you want me to, but like I see how, like you had mentioned, religion, like more and more people are leaving religion, and they're starting to see the um possibility for that expression to look in so many different ways. It doesn't have to look like the way my Catholic grandma told it to me. But I think what we're going to be missing, or what we're starting to see, is like, but we're missing a lot of the community pieces that those institutions brought. So then it's like, well, then how do spiritual people commune?
yeah.
And that's right now a real bumpy ride. It's a
I
real
would
bumpy ride.
I would agree because you're having the clash of people wearing the clothes and then the people who are actually practicing the stuff and have a heart and a devotion to this. And it's like, oh, we're the same. And then you meet and it's like, oh,
We're not this.
we're not the same. You're afraid. I'm sorry, but you're afraid and you don't want to do the work. You just want to feel good and look a certain way. We're here because we don't care how we look. We want to do the work to heal ourselves and heal our community. You know, there's a really funny thing. Like I think we could get into a huge discussion about psychedelics because that's all tapped into this.
Right.
Right? That's a huge trend right now. And um, like here in St. Louis, there's kind of two communities. There is one psychedelic community that is very dedicated to helping people heal and uh, grow, and that holds ceremony in a really serious way that takes things seriously. And I think maybe one of the major defining factors is that they are concerned with people's well-being to do as much work as possible to eliminate the chance for a negative experience, right? And so, right, so there's that community. Then there's another community that's just kind of wants to have fun and go on a trip. Nothing wrong with that, but uh it's like when people from the let's have fun and see some pretty colors and shoot off into the blast off into the universe for fun, meet the people that are like trying to heal from sexual trauma or trying to heal from neglect and abuse or substance abuse and stuff. They're like, oh shit, like these people are being extremely vulnerable and they are crying. They are, really going through it and are interested in being there and going through it. The people who just want to have a good time get scared and they run away. Um, so it's yeah. How do we create community or what sort of community arises when you have these kind of two different viewpoints of a similar thing or the same thing? Um, I mean, yeah, that's all being worked out in a very rocky way for sure.
Yeah, and I think right now we're just primed for that. I mean, there's division in everything I can possibly think of, like all over the world. And yeah, I'm not involved in the psychedelic community, but I everything that I am involved in, psychedelics are just like right there. So
Yeah,
I'm still like learning and hearing about it without being super involved. And I can imagine exactly what you're talking about. And I also think that there's a real opportunity here to be like, oh, you want to have a good time? That's fine. Go do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But like what we're doing is like this over here.
Yeah.
And like same thing with the people who are trying to like heal and like get in the process of things. Like that's fine too and that's great. But like they need to be not separate, but there needs to be this understanding of what the intention is so that like either they can go to the camp that's happening or like go to the camp to which they belong to, or there can be this like, oh, you're scared of what's happening because you're here to have fun.
Yeah.
Like, and then there's like the next step to that. Like we seem to be missing that next step of like, okay, here's how we remedy this, or this is how we like bring truth to the process or something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, for sure. I feel like for people who get scared, there is an invitation there to be like, having fun is cool and stuff, but there's some incredible opportunities when you dive into this in a real way, and you don't have to be scared. There's guardrails and there's people and real community to help us deal with what's coming up. You
Hmm.
know,
Right.
I feel like these camps or perspectives just naturally sort themselves, and that the ones that are really serious stay and the ones that aren't fall apart because it's about the intention. It's like, why are you doing this? If you're going to do it just to have fun, then there's a million other ways to have fun, and eventually people will move on to other ways of having fun, right? And the churches and communities that arise to do the work and help heal and come together in a truly loving way, those are going to remain, you know.
Hmm.
And like if you look at the example of of Christianity, there's Orthodoxy, Catholicism, and then Protestants. And within Protestantism alone, there's like hundreds of different divisions, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so that's the human mind that you are witnessing there is people saying, well, I believe this, but I don't believe that. Or
Hmm.
I like this, but I don't like that. And I'm going to create my own thing because, I want to incorporate all these elements, but I don't want to incorporate those elements, So that's going to happen. That happens in that's humanity, and that is life at work, right? That's like evolution. Like here's a frog and then here's the frogs in all these environments, and you're going to get a frog that looks like this, and one that looks like that, and one that's they're all a little bit different, but they're all frogs, right? I think the same thing will happen too. Is like there can be spiritual community that believes in souls and all of this, but doesn't believe in reincarnation or something like. So there's going to be divisions. There's going to be all these different groups, and that's okay. And that's how things are. And if some of those groups are really dedicated to actual spiritual practice and the betterment of humanity, and some of them aren't, and that's what will be as well, and already is. So
I think two things come up there for me is like tolerance, right? Like having
yeah,
how can we hold and increase our capacity to be with a person in a different process or experience than us?
yeah,
And then the other thing that I thought about is like, what do you think is the lasting effects of someone who's in the psychedelic space just have fun,
mm,
that maybe stumbles across like a healing session and then isn't willing to go deep and gets scared? What do you think the lasting effects for that person in that fear become?
yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
I
uh
know.
there is genuine potential for psychological harm with psychedelics, and a lot of people in the world of fun do not want to admit that or understand it. Um,
Mhm,
I
mhm,
have, in healing ceremony circles, I have seen people come out of their journey shaken to their very core, because of what they experienced and saw. And it wasn't like they relived their sexual trauma or something like that. It was simply like I was in literal hell being tortured by demons for the last 7 hours, like um so there is a legitimate potential for harm. Not that that vision or experience was, real in the most ultimate sense of the word, but it was subjectively real, right? So yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. People in the want to have fun camp, um, I think they don't take seriously the power of the things that they're working with.
Hmm.
Like it's almost like handing, an angle grinder to a 5-year-old, right? Like you can really fucking hurt yourself. Like they might be all right. They might be all right 5, 10 times, but you could really fucking hurt yourself. Um, and to be ignorant of that is just inviting and welcoming that harm to yourself and to other people, you know,
Hmm.
or your relationships, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, and yeah, yeah. You were talking about, you mentioned, what was the other thing you mentioned? Oh,
Tolerance.
tolerance. Yeah, yeah. That's gonna be the mark of someone who's really practicing spirituality. If you get triggered by other people, and their spiritual garb, it means you still have work to do. Um,
Yeah.
and and then you get to decide whether or not you want to do that work or you want to keep judging people, like
Hmm.
um, having acceptance and love for your fellow human is where it's at. Like that's the real spiritual shit. Like
Hmm.
to love and accept everybody, regardless of what they say, what they think, how they dressed, what their socioeconomic status is, who the fuck political candidate's sign is in their front yard, right? Like, can you find love and acceptance for people regardless, And yeah, and that can be hard work. That can be hard work.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And to bring in the nervous system piece, because that's where I always will. Um, I think that when we have a deeper understanding of our body's relationship to other bodies and our environment, we can increase that tolerance. We can increase that capacity to be with other people who are different than us. But if we are always allowing the environment to influence us in such a way that we don't understand or don't know how to work with, it will seem as if the person wearing the garb is the enemy.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you're not able to regulate your nervous system and you get triggered by, you know, other people wearing whatever the fuck they're wearing, and you don't know how to regulate your nervous system well, you can easily spiral into all kinds of stuff in your mind and in your body, like you can get really angry, Um, there's a lot of things, and you're absolutely right. Like spending time with your nervous system and learning how to regulate it,
Mhm.
with proper sleep, with breath, with water, all these kinds of things. You're gonna be able to manage those triggers and reactions better, and then have the space inside of yourself to make a choice of how you, after that initial reaction of like how you really want to respond. Uh,
Mhm.
and you'll be much more prepared to bring love and compassion to yourself, the part of yourself that's having those judgments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Um, hmm. What else is coming up for you on this topic?
Well, it's funny because I really don't care too much I mean, I care about the topic, like, but I kind of feel like as we're talking about it, it's like it's really illuminating to me like how um I feel just really grateful that things are a lot more accessible that I already like. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that like tapestries are around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like my hope is that the overarching hope is that it brings people into a more connected awareness of themselves. I just don't always see that to be the case. And then it's a matter of being okay with wherever they are and trying to be in a grounded, resilient place of myself so that if and when the opportunity presents itself for me to be that grounded, oh, here's like another way of working with the chakras or crystals or something that or like, oh, you have been in an underworld journey. Okay, like I welcome you and your the gems that you've discovered through that journey. I want to be like open and ready to receive that from whoever. So I think that part of my journey, part of my job is to be ready to accept someone when they've gone from the garb to the real stuff.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's it's nice to hold that door open, you know.
Hmm.
Like I said, there's just so much opportunity for people to get into the real stuff because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking of this girl on TikTok that comes up every once in a while on my feed, and she's like just, I mean, completely decorated. Like,
Yeah, maxed out. The one that sings the songs and everything.
yes, you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Like, her voice is really airy, and like she's got this rhyme going. She's probably been to Burning Man several times, you know. And like people are always up in her comments being such assholes to her about how fake she is.
Mhm.
And you know what? I'll never know her in real life, so I have no idea how fake she is. But there's a part of me that's super compassionate for the place that she is in the journey, wherever it is, where it's like, hey, she's doing her own thing. You know, like she's
Yeah.
totally being trying to be in her element. Or maybe she puts all that shit on for likes and comments. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like she's in the field, right? Because like I said it and you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's like that's I mean that's a phenomena. Like that's like I don't know what that is, but that's like something to be marveled at because
Yeah.
you know, I mean I hope she's not harming people intentionally or anything like that, but I just think we really need to you know, kind of pump the brakes on what we judge of one another because
Yeah.
we have no idea.
Yeah, we really don't. We don't
Sure.
know where it all goes, you
Yeah.
know. And like I was saying, like I think ultimately it's a net positive. Um, yeah, it's a net positive. It's like I don't know, to go back to a sports analogy, like someone buying skateboard shoes and like wearing all black and spiking their hair or something like in the 90s and shit. And then it's like, oh, yo, do you skate? And they're like, no. And they're like, oh, well, do you want to skate? You know, like there's an opportunity there. So ultimately it's good. It's yeah.
You know, that's so funny because I was that kid in high school who totally had the skater stuff and I tried skating and I fell on my ass like once and I was like, this sucks. I don't want to do it
Yeah.
anymore. Skateboarding
Yeah.
is really, really hard
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it kicks your ass, but I had the shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's cool. Like you're like, they're comfortable and I like the way they look. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Um,
But at
I'm
least I did try it, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
I wasn't total
yeah,
phony.
yes, yes. I want to go back to I was talking about capitalism
Yeah.
earlier, and I want to go back to that. And I guess it relates it relates to the misuse of spiritual principle, which is, I would say, also spiritual materialism. Um, like, what year did the movie The Secret come out?
Had to have been like 2005, 2007, 2008. I know we watched it in massage school and I was in massage
High
school in
school.
2008.
Yeah, yeah. I think it probably came out a few years before then. And then what, probably around the same time was What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So like, so this was like the talking about teaching about the spiritual principle of like where your attention is focused and what you experience, you know. In therapy, they call it confirmation bias.
Hmm.
right? So it's being shown as this spiritual principle, right? And I would say it is, and one sense of the word. But let's talk about that in relationship to spiritual materialism and capitalism, right? There's, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of influencers on TikTok and Instagram right now that are talking about using the law of attraction to make
Hmm.
first $1 million and to get your dream home and all that stuff, right?
Hmm.
And that's literally hijacking this idea in service of capitalism.
Hmm.
If you're watching this, chances are you've grown up in a capitalist society like the United States and Europe and the Western world, right? And those principles it's all about consumption and production and the use of money to further your means and your comfort, right? That's what we've been taught. That's what I've been taught. We've all been taught that, right? And it's totally acceptable, right? It's the same shit, same pattern of behavior, but now we've got this spiritual like bed sheet laid on top of it. But it's still like it's still the old dresser in the corner. You've just put a sheet on top of it. It's still fucking capitalism underneath. It's like you're just like using this idea to like, all right, let's make more money. Money is good. We should all have all the best money, all the most money, have the best house and all that stuff. You just put a different thing on top of it, and it doesn't change what's really there. Um, that's a big thing, like spirituality and money. Money is not inherently bad, and you should have enough of it, but it's not like it shouldn't be your goal in life, and or it shouldn't be the biggest thing in your life, right? And using spirituality to manifest $1 million is the wrong use of your powers of manifestation, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Well,
Because you,
manifestation is truly about magnetism, right? It's
yeah,
about aligning yourself in such a way that like what you desire, what you want to create, like comes to you because you're magnetized toward it. It's
right.
not it's and like what I gathered from The Secret and like law of attraction stuff was just like some OCD patterns. Like, oh, don't think that. Like, oh,
Oh,
don't think that. Like,
yeah.
and really like harmful.
Yeah,
So,
it can definitely be misinterpreted in that way as well.
yeah, and I also
Yeah.
think that a lot of law of attraction bullshit is to throw around another term is privilege, is very privileged thinking.
Yeah.
And I just
Like maybe the reason that you manifested that car was not because of your spiritual power or use of this principle, but more that you're white, you live in an affluent neighborhood, and your parents and family and everybody around you has wealth, so it's easier for you to access those opportunities.
right,
Yeah.
right. But I think that we have to really, I mean, speaking from like a spiritual theory concept is like we have to really look at our relationship with capitalism, really look at our relationship with money
Yeah.
and wealth and abundance and enoughness, and really look at like what how does these concepts define me,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
how do I see myself within these concepts?
Right.
These bare depth questions
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
have to be explored with patience and grace
Yeah.
and compassion. Um, something that I am very much seeing right now to talk about capitalism and money is like how everything you have to pay for everything. Like every service, every like we
Yeah.
have to outsource almost everything in order for it to be considered valuable. And I think we're just kind of seeing ourselves at the end of that continuum that's like not working
Yeah. Yeah.
for people.
Humans. Yeah, for humans. Yeah, the commoditization of everything and relationship. That's a big thing, and it is all tied to this, like we ought to be engaging in spiritual principle and spiritual ideation to bring about more love, more connection, more compassion, more community. If
Hmm.
we're utilizing those concepts to bring more money, more houses, more cars, we're misusing those ideas.
Hmm.
And yeah, and we ought to explore our relationship to capitalism, to consumption, all those things. Like you and I live inside of that system right now. It would be very difficult for you or I or anybody to extract themselves from the consumer society that we live
Mhm.
in. So
Mhm.
steep, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so, but we can still, that doesn't mean you have to go to the nth degree, right? You can still live in the system, and being comfortable is like something everybody wants. It's because it's what our body wants. We all have the same bodies, and we want our bodies to feel good and be comfortable,
Right.
right? So nothing wrong with that. But to go so far as to seek, complete and total fulfillment through capitalistic means is really a dead end.
Yeah, it's not gonna
So
happen.
yeah, so the investigation of your relationship to these concepts and behaviors is really important because
Yeah.
that's what will lead you to a deeper fulfillment in life and and a deeper sense of self and connection to others and the world around you.
Well, I sort of mentioned this earlier, but what I'm seeing right now is collectively, like there's a collective questioning about this. And a couple years ago, I don't remember when it was, but a really good friend of mine, she went on this like tirade about like normalize paying your friends for the advice they give you. And immediately I was like, what? Like now we're like outsourcing our friendships, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and we're making our friendships a commodity essentially. And I remember just seeing that and being like, okay, where's the line? Like, where's the line? And like, okay, I'm gonna hire you for a service versus like, hey, I'm in a hard time in my life, or like I have a question I'm asking. Do I pay for your coffee or do I pay your hourly fee, or like, like it gets
right.
weird.
Yeah,
And so now I feel like this pendulum switching in this other way where I saw a meme yesterday on Facebook that it's like spiritual retreats, gatherings, whatever is like it's a peak experience. It's not actually the work of community building.
yeah,
And so now all the people are starting to share the meme, and then they have the comment sections are like, yeah, yes, this, yes, girlfriend. But there's no conversation about what does that mean.
yeah, yeah,
Like, where does community begin?
yeah,
And I mean, I've been asking this question for years, literally years. I've been asking how do we build community when our churches are no longer safe, when the institutions that were the spaces community gathered, like we joined the YMCA and I was like, holy shit, like there's a community right here,
yeah,
you know, and it doesn't have to be a church, but like that's was what the church provided in a lot of ways.
yeah,
So now as we've all left the church, we've now decided that community is really important, and now we don't know where to find it or how to make it or how to maintain it.
yeah,
um and there was one comment that I saw someone say, and of course finances have to be tied to all these peak experiences. So like at what point, and like we all have to eat, so like we have to do something, but the conversation always stops right there. It's like where
yeah,
the finances, people don't want to talk about money, people don't want
yeah,
to talk about like how much they have or how little they have.
yeah,
And until we're ready to have those conversations, we're going to keep like no growth is going to happen. We're not
yeah,
going to go through, we're not going to grow through this because we're going to keep having um arguments about it. It's
yeah,
like it's all a bunch of like hand fist raising, yes, but then I'm saying yes and question mark.
yep. I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. Like, that's a major part of the healing and the movement, the future movement, that we're the direction we're
Well, and just to tag on to that, it's like, okay, we look back in the past where we had shamans and like doctors of medicine in tribes, and those people didn't necessarily charge for what their services were, but that's because the rest of the community made sure they were taken care of and they valued what they
Yeah.
provided to the community. So people like you and I who are charging money for the healing services that we offer, we have to continue to do that until the community comes back to us and lifts us up.
Right. Or we, yeah, somehow create that around ourselves. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's where I'm interested in the conversation. Like those
Yeah.
are the conversations I'm interested in having, it more than just sharing fucking Facebook memes on building community.
You're absolutely right. Those are important and very necessary conversations to have. Like that's the big part, having the conversation, like memes and texts are not valid, valuable forms of legitimate communication that build relationship.
Right.
It's got to be more than that. It requires vulnerability and it requires taking time to get to know somebody
Yeah,
and to for someone to know you, you
right.
know.
That's where
Um,
the patience comes in,
yeah,
it's not an overnight thing for
no.
sure.
Yeah, then that's the difference, we're all taught that you can just buy something and get what you want immediately,
Yeah,
You can't buy friendship, you can't buy trust.
no.
It has to be cultivated. It takes time.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Anyway, gotten a little bit off track there, but yeah, to summarize, spiritual materialism ultimately okay. Um, can be a door to deeper real shit. It's tied up in capitalism, right? Is, misuse of spiritual ideation. Um, and yeah, be careful of it because it's just another ego trap. If you're looking for greater personal development, greater levels of love and engagement in the world, you've got to go beyond the surface identity and get into it. So,
Hmm.
yeah, don't get stuck in the trap of like just buying the things and wearing the stuff and going to the sound bath and owning the crystal bowl or whatever. Like I encourage anyone listening to really dive into doing the work and be prepared to be uncomfortable and connect with a community because you're gonna need them to help you when you're feeling uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
I just, when you were saying that, I think that's kind of a trend that you and I both share in these conversations is that we are interested in the depth.
Yeah.
We are interested in going deep and being with the depth, even when it's uncomfortable and even when it's joyful and
Yeah.
um exuberant, like I want to be with all of those depths.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and we want to be with you too. So
Yeah.
go to our websites, give us a call, look us up,
Yeah.
and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye, guys. Bye.